There's a moment right before the throttle opens when everything narrows to a single pulse. The track hums beneath you, the air sharp with fuel and adrenaline, and the machine beneath feels more alive than mechanical. Every movement, every ounce of pressure translates into speed or consequence. It's a conversation measured in milliseconds, a test of nerve and mastery where confidence is earned, not given. This isn't about chrome or comfort. It's about control, pure, undiluted connection between rider and engineering. Somewhere in that fragile balance between aggression and grace lies the story of how a modern superbike can redefine a legacy built over decades. What happens when evolution meets obsession? When data and tradition fuse into something terrifyingly precise? That's where our story begins. Like, subscribe and comment what machine you want to see dissected next. The Suzuki GSX-R1000R represents the pinnacle of a lineage that began in the mid-1980s, when Suzuki rewrote the rules for street-legal sport bikes. From its inception, the GSX-R series stood for a singular mission: bring track performance to the public road without compromise. By the time the GSX-R1000R emerged, Suzuki had decades of victories, lessons, and engineering breakthroughs to draw from. This model wasn't designed to merely keep up with technology. It was meant to preserve the essence of the GSX-R creed in an age of computers, sensors, and traction algorithms. In the early stages of its conception, Suzuki's engineers faced a dilemma. How do you make a superbike faster, yet still feel like something a human controls, not a circuit board? The original GSX-R1000 had already cemented its legend as a raw, ferocious road racer. The GSX-R1000R was envisioned to translate that same visceral thrill into the modern era, where regulations tightened, rivals embraced electronics, and riders demanded precision without losing character. To understand its birth, we have to look back to what defined the GSX-R name in the first place. When the first GSX-R750 debuted in 1985, Suzuki changed the industry overnight. Lightweight aluminum frame, oil-cooled inline-4 engine, and styling that screamed purpose. It was not just a motorcycle, it was a manifesto. Every GSX-R that followed carried that DNA of lightweight power and agile handling, and as racing technology advanced, the displacement wars began. By the late 1990s, the 1000cc class had become the proving ground for every manufacturer chasing dominance. The GSX-R1000 entered that arena in 2001 as Suzuki's declaration that it could build a leader bike without sacrificing the magic of its smaller siblings. Fast forward to the GSX-R1000R's arrival, it was a full circle moment. Suzuki didn't just want a faster machine. It wanted a smarter one, infused with the lessons of MotoGP. The engineers began with a blank canvas but a familiar purpose: build a superbike that behaves like an extension of its rider. They refined the frame geometry for razor-sharp agility, rebalanced the weight distribution to favor control over brute force, and developed an advanced variable valve timing system derived directly from Suzuki's premier racing program. It wasn't about chasing top-speed figures. It was about making that speed usable, repeatable, and precise. Every design choice reflected a struggle between tradition and innovation. The bodywork echoed the GSX-R lineage, sleek and functional. But beneath it lay a network of sensors, inertial measurement units, and data-driven components that continuously adjusted traction, throttle response, and suspension dynamics in real time. Suzuki called it a total control concept, a phrase that sounds clinical but translated to something very human: confidence at the edge. The GSX-R1000R allowed riders to push harder with fewer consequences, not because it hid their mistakes, but because it gave them more feedback, more connection, and more trust in the machine. Yet the engineers never wanted to sanitize the experience. There's a fine line between control and isolation. Suzuki was obsessed with staying on the right side of it. They spent countless hours refining throttle feel, gear ratios, and braking force to maintain that raw dialogue between bike and rider. This is what separated the GSX-R1000R from being just another superbike with electronics. It still demanded skill, but rewarded mastery with precision, unlike any GSX-R before it. The decision to retain a mechanical soul in an electronic age wasn't a compromise. It was the point. Owners of earlier GSX-R generations often described their bikes as living, breathing beasts that punished hesitation but exalted courage. The GSX-R1000R, in that sense, was designed not to tame that spirit, but to translate it for a new generation who had grown up expecting digital refinement. Suzuki's goal wasn't to make the bike easier, it was to make it clearer. Every input mattered, every millisecond counted, but now the feedback came faster, cleaner, and more predictable. The result was a superbike that bridged eras, the analog aggression of the 2000s and the digital intelligence of the 2020s. On paper, the numbers impressed. Over 199 horsepower from a compact inline-4, a svelte frame, and electronics that rivaled bikes far costlier. But the real story wasn't the specs, it was the intent. The GSX-R1000R existed because Suzuki refused to let the GSX-R legacy fade into nostalgia. Instead, it evolved it. Riders who swung a leg over immediately felt the difference. The way it cornered with precision yet flowed naturally. How the quick shifter and slipper clutch turned every lap into a rhythm rather than a struggle. And how the engine's mid-range punch made it equally comfortable attacking apexes or carving highway stretches. It was as if the engineers had distilled 30 years of lessons into one final focused statement. This is what a modern superbike should feel like. That philosophy, that refusal to chase trends or gimmicks, defined its character. The GSX-R1000R wasn't trying to win a spec sheet war. It was trying to preserve a way of riding that was disappearing. And in doing so, Suzuki created a machine that felt timeless the moment it was released. Yet, understanding its place means looking beyond the engineering and asking, how did it resonate with riders and racers in a changing world? That's where the next chapter begins. When the Suzuki GSX-R1000R finally hit the market, it didn't just enter a competitive segment, it walked straight into a battlefield. The leader bike class had evolved into a technological arms race, and every manufacturer had its flagship armed to the teeth. Yet the GSX-R1000R approached that challenge differently, not with sheer gadgetry, but with a kind of purposeful restraint. This machine represented Suzuki's belief that progress doesn't always mean excess. It means refinement. By this point, the GSX-R name carried enormous weight among enthusiasts, racers, and weekend track riders. It wasn't merely another superbike, it was an institution. When the GSX-R1000R arrived, people wanted to know whether Suzuki still had the fire that once made it unbeatable. On paper, the specs looked competitive. Roughly 199 horsepower, lightweight frame, advanced variable valve timing, quick shifter, and sophisticated traction control. But in a field crowded with bikes boasting semi-active suspension, full-color displays, and aggressive electronics suites, some wondered if Suzuki's restraint would hold it back. The truth turned out more complex and more interesting. Out on the road and track, the GSX-R1000R earned respect for its balance. Riders quickly discovered that Suzuki's less but better approach made the bike feel more intuitive. It didn't overwhelm the senses with constant digital interference. It communicated. You could feel the tires talking through the chassis, the suspension offering feedback instead of filters. That connection became its identity, old-school involvement paired with modern capability. Reviewers often described it as the superbike that didn't need to shout to be fast. While some rivals dazzled with technology, the GSX-R1000R simply delivered. It offered lap times that rivaled anything in its class, yet remained approachable for riders stepping up from smaller displacements. This duality was intentional. Suzuki wanted to build a motorcycle that rewarded skilled riders without alienating enthusiasts who weren't chasing championships. In the US market, that balance hit a nerve. American riders valued the GSX-R's reputation for reliability and raw excitement, and the GSX-R1000R carried that torch while finally offering the sophistication needed to compete globally. It became a favorite among privateer racers and track day regulars, riders who needed something dependable yet deadly quick. You could ride it hard all weekend and drive it home afterward, a rarity among machines this focused. The tuning community embraced it too. Because Suzuki's engine design retained mechanical accessibility, owners could modify it without wrestling with overcomplicated electronics. Tuners found ways to extract even more power, improve response, and personalize the experience. The aftermarket support exploded. Exhaust systems, ECU flashes, suspension upgrades, all aimed at sharpening an already lethal weapon. And then there was racing. The GSX-R1000R may not have dominated MotoGP, that's a separate battlefield, but in national and club-level series it found loyal soldiers. Privateers who couldn't afford the latest factory-backed superbikes turned to the GSX-R1000R as a cost-effective tool that could still win trophies. That mattered because it spoke to the soul of the GSX-R ethos, accessible performance. Suzuki understood that the legend wasn't built solely on championship titles. It was built in garages, on back roads, and in amateur paddocks where riders learned to push their limits. The GSX-R1000R kept that flame alive. Still, it wasn't immune to criticism. Some riders wanted more tech, more adjustability, more showmanship. In an era where dashboards looked like fighter jet cockpits, the GSX-R1000R felt almost Spartan. But for others, that was the appeal. It stripped away distractions and forced the rider to focus on what really mattered: the next corner, the next gear, the next heartbeat. In the American context, where road conditions vary and open highways stretch endlessly, this approach fit perfectly. It was stable at speed, predictable under load, and forgiving enough for spirited riding without feeling sterile. For those chasing lap times, its chassis balance and throttle response made it one of the most confidence-inspiring bikes of its generation. And unlike some rivals that demanded constant maintenance or specialized knowledge, the GSX-R1000R carried Suzuki's reputation for bulletproof reliability. This dependability fostered a unique kind of loyalty. Owners didn't just ride these bikes, they kept them, modified them, and passed them down. The GSX-R1000R thus became not only a performance benchmark but also a symbol of continuity in a fast-changing industry. As emissions regulations tightened and sport bike sales began to plateau, Suzuki's restraint suddenly looked prophetic. While others scrambled to reinvent themselves with hybrid powertrains or extreme redesigns, the GSX-R1000R stood its ground. It was proof that evolution could be quiet, deliberate, and still thrilling. Yet under the surface, a question lingered. How long could this formula last? Could a machine rooted in analog feeling survive in a world obsessed with digital control? That tension defined its later years. As the motorcycle industry shifted toward rider aids, connectivity, and eco-consciousness, the GSX-R1000R remained defiantly pure. Its appeal wasn't mass market, it was emotional, almost nostalgic. It spoke to the rider who still valued skill over software, and that audience, though smaller, was fiercely loyal. In many ways, the GSX-R1000R's journey through the 2020s mirrored that of the enthusiast world itself, caught between two eras, unwilling to let go of the past yet curious about the future. The bike's impact wasn't just about performance figures, it was about perspective. It reminded the community that technology should serve the rider, not replace them. And while the industry moved toward ever more complex systems, the GSX-R1000R remained a benchmark of purity. As we turn toward its legacy, one truth becomes clear. Its story isn't just about horsepower or handling. It's about identity. And that's exactly where the next segment takes us. The Honda CBR1000RRR Fireblade 2025 is more than a motorcycle. It's a milestone, marking both the end of one era and the blueprint for the next. As this generation takes its place on showroom floors and race grids, it forces a question that's bigger than lap times or horsepower figures. What does mastery mean in a world increasingly defined by machines that think for us? To answer that, you have to look at the Fireblade's legacy in motion. Every version since the early 90s has refined a singular idea, that precision, not power, defines performance. The 2025 Fireblade carries that torch into a future filled with algorithms and electric drivetrains, proving that mechanical connection still matters. Honda knows the Fireblade's audience intimately. These are riders who crave immersion, the feeling of being an integral part of the machine, not just a passenger to its programming. The 2025 iteration amplifies that through seamless integration of rider aids that enhance, not override, human input. When you roll onto the throttle mid-corner, the bike doesn't interrupt. It collaborates. It's a dialogue, not a correction. That's why enthusiasts call it one of the most intuitive superbikes of its generation. But as technology marches on, even Honda's purists understand that evolution is inevitable. Electric propulsion, AI-assisted stability, and connected telemetry will soon redefine what motorcycles can do. The Fireblade's job is to ensure that when that happens, the human element remains central. Its 2025 incarnation can be seen as Honda's final manifesto on what a purely combustion-driven superbike should be: light, communicative, alive under pressure. It's the benchmark that future engineers will measure against when deciding how to preserve feel in a digital world. In racing, the Fireblade's legacy continues to evolve. While factory efforts in World SBK may not yet rival the dominance of earlier MotoGP eras, each development cycle feeds back into production models. The 2025 bike represents a data-driven feedback loop. Years of telemetry, rider feedback, and real-world testing distilled into a single cohesive expression. It's no longer about brute horsepower. It's about managing the dance between grip, momentum, and intent. Every Honda racer who rides a Fireblade feels that lineage, the weight of expectations balanced by the precision of innovation. For owners, that legacy manifests in reliability and refinement. The CBR-1000RR Fireblade 2025 offers a paradoxical mix of race-bred performance and Honda's trademark dependability. It's a motorcycle that can deliver blistering track sessions, yet commute comfortably when needed. Its service intervals are measured and its systems redundant, designed for endurance as much as excitement. This duality, superbike power with everyday usability, embodies Honda's vision of perfection. What truly elevates the Fireblade, though, is its cultural impact. In the US, where large displacement bikes often serve as aspirational purchases, the Fireblade isn't just an object of desire, it's a symbol of mastery. It appeals to riders who see motorcycling as an art form, who understand that control and precision are more fulfilling than raw acceleration. The 2025 version extends that philosophy with subtlety. Its technology fades into the background, leaving nothing between you and the experience of motion itself. Yet Honda's restraint also hints at what's coming. The Fireblade name may soon live on in hybrid or electric form, but its core identity, balance, feedback, connection, will remain. The 2025 model isn't just the ultimate Fireblade, it's the codex for whatever comes next. It teaches future designers how to translate emotion into code, how to preserve sensation in silence. That's its enduring contribution. Even its imperfections tell a story. Some writers say it lacks the sheer drama of its louder, wilder competitors, but that's intentional. The Fireblade has never been about spectacle, it's about fluency. Honda doesn't build chaos, it builds clarity. The 2025 model shows that sophistication doesn't have to mean sterility, that technology can deepen emotion rather than dilute it. In the long arc of motorcycle history, the CBR-1000RR Fireblade 2025 will likely be remembered as a turning point, the last great analog soul wrapped in digital skin. It captures the essence of why people fell in love with motorcycling in the first place: the intimacy of motion, the purity of response, the satisfaction of control earned, not given. In this sense, the Fireblade is less a machine and more a reminder of what humanity brings to the equation. As the market shifts and electrification looms, one thing remains certain: the Fireblade's influence will persist. Its design principles, lightness, responsiveness, and synergy will continue to inform whatever comes next from Honda's engineers. The 2025 Fireblade isn't just an endpoint. It's a seed for the future, showing that progress doesn't have to mean disconnection. And that's why, decades from now, enthusiasts will still speak of it with reverence. It's the superbike that didn't just chase perfection, it redefined it on its own terms. In the final segment, we'll bring this story home: how the Fireblade 2025 fits into ownership reality for US riders, what its legacy means on the open road, and why it might just be the last great expression of mechanical purity. For US riders looking at the Suzuki GSX-R1000R today, the conversation starts with understanding what it represents. This isn't just another high-performance motorcycle, it's the culmination of 4 decades of Suzuki's pursuit of balance between man, machine, and motion. In a marketplace now dominated by electronic complexity and rising costs, the GSX-R1000R has become something more valuable, a touchstone for authentic performance. The model's availability has fluctuated over the years, but clean examples, especially low-mileage units, still surface regularly across the states, often commanding a premium from riders who know exactly what they're buying. It's not about rarity for rarity's sake. It's about owning one of the last leader-class superbikes that truly felt mechanical at its core. For buyers considering one, the advice is simple: look for maintenance discipline. The engine is famously durable, but it rewards care. Oil changes, chain tension, and valve checks are the difference between longevity and frustration. Parts remain accessible, and because Suzuki's mechanical architecture evolved gradually, there's a deep network of support from tuners and service shops nationwide. Insurance remains reasonable compared to some Italian rivals, and the bike's usability makes it viable as a weekend toy or an occasional commuter. But the real cost of entry isn't financial, it's commitment. The GSX-R1000R asks something of its rider. It demands attention, respect, and a willingness to learn its language. In return, it offers one of the purest experiences still available on 2 wheels. There's no hiding behind modes or maps. It's you and the machine working together. That dynamic defines ownership satisfaction for those who choose it. In terms of reliability, the GSX-R1000R carries Suzuki's hallmark toughness. Riders report engines crossing well over 40,000 miles without drama when maintained properly. Electronics have proven robust, with few systemic faults beyond normal wear items. It's not the kind of bike that will constantly drain your wallet chasing perfection. It arrives nearly there. For collectors, its value lies not in scarcity but in symbolism. It's a bridge to the golden era of sport bikes, one that still feels modern enough to ride hard without nostalgia gloss. That dual identity gives it staying power in a world that's moving quickly away from combustion-powered emotion. For younger enthusiasts, it offers a reality check. Real performance doesn't need to be digitalized. It needs to be understood. For veterans, it's a return to form, a reminder of why they fell in love with motorcycling in the first place. That's the enduring gift of the Suzuki GSX-R1000R. It captures a disappearing moment in time when performance machines still trusted their riders to rise to the occasion. In the years ahead, as new technologies take center stage, this motorcycle will remain a benchmark for what authenticity feels like when stripped of pretense. It stands as proof that mastery isn't about domination. It's about partnership. The GSX-R1000R teaches that lesson with every turn of the throttle, and that's a lesson worth preserving. Final line. In a world chasing control, the Suzuki GSX-R1000R reminds us that the most thrilling kind of power is the kind you earn.